The release of Canto 9 in Limbus Company was followed by the long-anticipated addition of the Index Syndicate to the game. The first banner came with the new season, and the second unit is just around the corner. And well, we can't really predict what she does just yet, as it seems like Dawn has been to a certain island. So in the meantime, I think we should take a look at Index Proselyte Faust, the second identity from the first banner of Season 7. Faust is a Sinking Poise hybrid, with a focus on the brand new prescript mechanic, which incentivizes the player to use skills and target enemies in accordance with the will of the city. But Faust as a sinner already has identities for these two teams, meaning that the Index has competition. And that raises the question: is Index Proselyte Faust strong enough to be used in either of her signature teams, or is she inferior to her older counterparts? In this video I aim to answer this question by first going over Faust's kit, and then looking at her performance in Sinking and Poise, while comparing her to other identities along the way. But before we start, allow me to remind you that most of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you find yourself coming back to my videos or end up enjoying this one, consider subscribing. It takes just 1 second and helps me out a lot. Now let's get to Faust. We'll start with her kit. Index Faust has fairly low health, average speed, and a +1 defense level. Her sin affinity spread consists of Sloth, Pride, and Gloom, with a Gloom defense. All of Faust's skills gain coin power based on Poise on Faust and Sinking on the enemy. Her skill 1 clashes at up to 16, gets clash power and deals more damage if it's marked with Mark of the Prescript, gives Faust 2 poise count on use, and its coins give Faust 1 poise and inflict 1 sinking, inflicting 1 more on crit. Her skill 2 rolls up to 23, gains final power when marked, and gives Faust 3 poise and 2 poise count on use. The coins of the skill inflict 2 sinking and give 2 poise, while also inflicting 2 sinking count on crit with the last coin. Her skill 3 rolls up to 24, gains final power and crit damage when marked, deals even more damage and gets unbreakable coins if Faust is at 6 grace of the prescript or higher, and gives Faust 3 poise count on use, as well as poise potency equal to a third of Faust's graces. The coins of the skill give 1 poise and inflict 2 sinking, with the last one dealing more damage based on Faust's graces and inflicting 3 sinking count on crit. As for her defense, Faust gets a counter. The counter has 3 coins, gets final power and deals more damage based on Faust's graces, and gives Faust a shield at combat start, equal to 15% of her max HP, with the shield's value going down based on Faust's karmic consequence stack, vanishing entirely at 50 or higher. On use it gives 2 poise, and its coins inflict 2 sinking. As for Faust's passives, she gets 3. The first one gives Faust a prescript at turn start, with the kind of prescript depending on how many graces she has. The passive also applies the prescript's target to a random enemy, and mark of the prescript to a random base attack skill of Faust, with a max of 2 but only 1 on each slot. The mark prioritizes Faust's skill 3 if she is at 6 graces or higher. Also, none of these effects proc when Faust is staggered, immobilized, panicking or corroding. The second passive, Will of the Prescript, heals Faust's sanity and gives her a grace when she executes a prescript, once per turn. If the main target is marked, then, upon prescript execution, Faust gets double the SP and triple the graces. At turn end, if prescript wasn't executed, Faust gains 5 karmic consequence, but does not get that effect if she is at 9 graces. Luckily, if you tried executing a prescript at combat start, but couldn't due to the enemy dying too fast or ending a phase or something, karmic consequence is also not gained. Faust's third passive, Proselyte's Blade, costs 1 slot, Gloom and Pride owned to activate, and it increases Faust's damage with marked skills based on her graces, with the buff being applied to all base skills at 9 graces on Faust. Also, on hit with a base skill against a marked target, Faust inflicts 1 sinking and gains 1 poise, once per turn. That cap gets increased for every 3 graces on Faust, up to 2 times. And at 9 graces, Faust's base skills inflict 1 more sinking potency, and Faust gains 1 more poise potency. As for the Proselyte's support passive, it also needs 1 sloth, gloom and pride, and it targets the first deployed ally, prioritizing allies from the index. At combat start, if the ally is targeting the same slot as their other allies with the ID's leftmost skill slot, they deal 5% more damage for every other ally focus targeting the same slot, up to 15%. Before we get into Faust's performance, we should also look at her unique effects. Mark of the Prescript simply applies a mark to Faust's skills. The prescript's target makes the afflicted enemy take 10% more damage from index units, and is applied to only 1 target, even if multiple units are applying it. Grace of the Prescript stacks to 9, and grants 1 offense level to Faust for every 3 stacks of the effect. Karmic Consequence stacks to 100, and at turn start it gives Faust 1 defense level down for every 10 stacks, and 1 fragile for every 20. And finally, the prescripts themselves. There are 4 types of these prescripts Faust can receive. The first one is gained at 0 to 2 graces, and it requires Faust to use a skill with mark of the prescript or hit a target with a marked skill. Faust cannot go above 3 graces using this prescript. The second one is gained at 3 to 5 graces, and it requires Faust to hit an enemy with a marked skill. Faust cannot go above 6 graces using this prescript. The third one is gained at 6 to 8 graces, and it requires Faust to hit an enemy with an Ego Awakening skill or a marked skill 3, and Faust cannot go above 9 graces with this. The fourth and last prescript is gained at 9 graces, and all it says is kill everyone. Don't worry, Faust's passive protects her from consequences of not executing this one, so it's just a marker for when the grace stacking phase of the fight ends. With this, we're finally ready to look at Faust in combat, and first let's establish her goals and abilities. Faust is a unit that is tied to her prescripts and marks, with the effects basically dictating her actions. Marked skills do more damage and allow you to gain graces, and marked enemies take more damage and increase the grace gain from Faust's passive. Getting to 9 graces of the prescript effectively ends the prescript gimmick, as Faust is locked into the kill everyone prescript, the execution of which is the end of the fight. But she doesn't get any bad karma for not killing everyone instantly due to her passive, meaning you can just forget about that part of her kit entirely once you're fully stacked. To get to 9 graces though, you need to execute Faust's prescripts. The first 2 are easy. All you need to do is pick the highlighted skill and use it against an enemy. Of course, if there are multiple foes or a multi-part boss and Faust is not fully stacked, you want to aim for the marked target, as that will triple your setup speed. The third prescript is the interesting one here, as it explicitly allows Faust to weave in an ego on the third turn of the fight, while continuing to stack and getting to 9 graces by turn 4. And the obvious choice of ego to execute this prescript is Thorakalgia, but we'll get a bit more into that when we talk about Poise. If you use an ego to execute prescript 3, then by turn 4 you will have 9 graces and the ability to instantly rip a max ramp skill 3, which does pretty good damage. If you use skill 3 for the prescript though, you're just stuck with the rest of your skills at max ramp. Getting that turn 4 skill 3 is pretty reliant on luck though, as if you get it early and it gets highlighted, you're forced to use it for setup, and if it drops to the bottom slot before you use an ego, then you will either have to use it for setup or erase it entirely by turning the slot into an ego skill. This gimmick is the core of Faust's identity as an identity. She is pretty much locked into setting up in 3 turns, and her damage and effect infliction both scale with her graces. This makes her fairly weak in short encounters, as she can't contribute much while still setting up. But every time a fight drags on after 3 turns, be it due to enemies coming in waves or a large boss HP pool with multiple phases, she gets to use her full strength for longer, making her more valuable. Outside of the prescripts, there isn't much to explain that doesn't go into status teams, so it's about time we looked at Faust in Sinking and Poise. And we'll start with Sinking, the same team that the new LCA Otis is made for. Sinking is mainly split into 2 styles, Deluge and Butterfly. The Deluge team revolves around fast sinking stacking, where you want to get as much surplus count as possible before nuking the enemy all at once. And the Butterfly team revolves around maximizing sinking procs, where you want to get as many coins in every turn as possible, while keeping count high enough to not lose the stack. Index Faust's direct competition in the Sinking team is her Butler identity, a Season 4 2-star that might look old but is alive and kicking due to her access to Echoes of the Manor, a potent count boosting effect, and her count positive skill 2, which comes with a side of potency due to her passive. In the Deluge team, do I even need to talk about this? Well, I guess I do, I get paid to reiterate simple concepts anyways. Spicebush Yisang ends fights in 3 turns by blowing up the enemy with the power of extreme sadness. If you don't want to reset, he does so in 4. Turn 4, the pretty much worst case scenario for a Spicebush nuke, allows Faust to perform at her best for exactly 1 turn. And there's a chance that she goes after Yisang as well, meaning she might not do anything even on turn 4. Her sinking count infliction is tied directly to critting, which is tied to Poise potency, which in itself is tied to graces in Faust's kit. Basically, you can expect her to be a huge count sink in the early turns of a fight, as she only starts offsetting her negativity when she stacks up Poise. Sure, her potency at its maximum might seem quite high, but again, that's only at her maximum. The potency that Faust offers simply does not offset the count she sucks up from the sinking stack, and count is generally just more valuable, as it's usually the lower of the two, meaning getting one more count increases deluge damage by more than getting one more potency. Of course, if the fight ends quickly, Faust never gets to perform as anything other than a count sink, so her effectiveness in deluge just doesn't exist. In this team you're better off running the cheaper butler, as she's straight up stronger. But you probably saw that one coming. And of course, the more intriguing usage of Faust and sinking is as part of a Solemn Lament composition. Faust's coinage is fairly high, her physical damage is quite nice, and count is not a resource you need to maximize here, you just need to keep it high enough. Surely, Faust works much better here, right? Well, yeah, she does. It's not that hard to be better than a straight up detriment, but it's still not as cut and dry as just use her with Solemn Lament and she will be awesome. Again, Faust weighs down your count greatly in the sinking team, so with a composition full of neutral or negative identities, you run the risk of her ruining the stack on turns 1 and 2, unless you get a good rotation on her other allies to counteract her negativity. You pretty much have to run Butler Otis, and you have to fish for her skill 3 early so that she can set up Echoes of the Manor to give you count. And with a Solemn Lament team like this, the main unit Faust is contesting is Wei Dawn, who is a similar idea in concept. High damage, good coins, but it's count. But Dawn ends up less negative than a Faust mid ramp up, and deals more damage as well, because her ramp up consists of pressing her defense once. She also has a 4 coin skill 3, which can go positive in count, so that's always great. Taking Faust over Wild Hunt creates huge early count problems here, so I wouldn't recommend that either. Still though, Faust is an option in Solemn Lament, and remember that Dawn is about to get a brand new sinking identity that is also from the Index, so that might shake things up in Faust's favor. For now, I'd say that she's kinda nice against abnormalities, because in those fights, sinking potency directly turns into damage. While against humans, your own hit capabilities are limited by Butterfly's cap, meaning that stacking sinking is less valuable than just hitting the enemy more and harder after a certain point. Overall though, why is her count locked behind Poise? Faust ends up being inconsistent no matter where you use her, and you still kind of want Rakelja for her, but that takes away resources from sinking egos that can use them better. Moving on to her second signature team, in Poise, everything is a lot simpler here. Big disclaimer though, Mao Faust exists, and she crits, and that's enough to make her the best Poise identity in the Railway and story. But we'll conveniently ignore all of that for this video, as it's kinda lame to talk about the domestic terrorist again. In Poise, Faust works like pretty much every normal Poise identity. She can fall victim to an early stack loss if you get unlucky, but as soon as you get Thrakalja online, you're chilling. And, of course, this is why you run Thrakalja and why you use it for the third prescript. Faust, normally, is pretty count negative in Poise, as while her count gain can cover for her coins, it does not cover for the turn and decay of the effect, all the while her potency skyrockets fast, meaning that a consistent +1 count every turn goes a long way, and allows the Proselyte to go neutral on her skills 1 and 3, only losing count on her skill 2, which goes -1. Speaking of her count, I also recommend looking into Blade Lineage Yisung for his support passive. as it gives extra poise count to the ally with the highest SP, and that's gonna be Faust due to her SP healing from her passive. Faust's physical damage once she's ramped up is also good, and she doesn't really have competition. Like, who else are you gonna run? Blade Lineage? She's been in the game for longer than most of my viewers, her damage fell off hard, and she hasn't seen the light of day for a year at this point. She Association? Yeah, no. The obvious answer is Mao Faust, of course, but again, we're ignoring the crushing power of Heishos for this, and when we do that, it's pretty clear to see that Index Faust is a promising poise unit that might get even better with the release of Index Dawn. And this is it for the Index Proselyte Faust. I'm still kind of iffy on her prescript mechanic being just manual win rate, but surely Dawn elevates it even further with her evil censored skills and whatever. I wouldn't rush to get this ID for Sinking, even though she's not the worst for Solemn Lament and Abnormalities. And Poise is kind of not really a team. But hey, it's getting some index buffs, so Faust is very much worth keeping in mind if you want to build that team, as she's already good and might get even better. If you disagree or have something to add, feel free to leave a comment below, and I might read it and respond. If you liked the video at any point, leave a like to let me know, and consider subscribing to see more like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!